So without further ado, we've now got 4 chairs very tightly stacked on this side of the, we'll maybe pull them out a little bit. But I'm going to ask Rizwan from RIKAS Hospitality Group, Lynne, who's the Director of Food and Beverage Business Development for EAME at Marriott, and Sam from José Andrés Group to come and join me on stage for our first panel session. Thank you. I know, it's all good. So, firstly, thank you for joining me on stage. For those of you that don't know me, my name's James Hacon. I've been a long-term collaborator with the GRIF community here and run a business called Think Hospitality. We're pretty global, but I'm personally based in the UK, but spend quite a lot of time in this part of the world. And yeah, between the people on the stage here, we've got 3 incredible experts who are not just talking about this, but doing it day in, day out. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself very briefly, a little bit about what you do. And as is customary, we'll start with you first, Lynne, ladies first.
Ladies first, thank you. Chivalry is not dead. Thank you, James. Good morning, everybody. Lynne Bellinger, Director of Food and Beverage Business Development for Marriott Hotels, and that's across Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions. So what I do in my role is I basically look at third-party partnerships for the food and beverage area in the company. So brands and chefs alike, and looking at different deals and partnering with those. Great,
thank you. We'll head over to Sam next.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have to be very nice to Lynne. I am the president of José Andrés Group. I look after our restaurant and our media operations. We have 38 restaurants globally, with our first toe in the water by launching in Dubai last year. We also have a media company that produces content through shows and books, which brings great awareness to our brands.
Thank you. And to you, Rizwan.
Hello, I'm Rizwan Kassim. I'm the owner and the managing partners of RIKAS Group. We are based in Dubai. We have today around 18 restaurants, quite diversified between beach club, restaurant, and cafe.
Amazing, thank you so much. I guess over the past decade or so, we've seen such a significant shift in hotel food and beverage. I think I started my career in hotels, and it was interesting that the third party or independent operators were always perceived as being kind of celebrity chefs. It was really what drove the industry a decade or so or more ago. I guess to Catherine's point just now, we've really seen a transition there of people thinking differently about food and beverage, and I guess investing more, not just seeing it as a direct revenue generator, but also kind of value at lots of levels. Really keen to understand where you guys have seen that transition. I think we'll maybe start with you again, Lynne.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously food and beverage is the mystique of the hotel, as I say, and it does drive people to various properties. If you look at there's food and beverage tourism. I mean, people actually follow certain brands. So, you know, if they like José Andrés, they will travel around the world and go to his restaurants. And we've seen that quite a lot of people doing that. So that's certainly changed. It's also, I mean, if we look at any kind of brand, you look at luxury brands, and it can be handbags, it can be cars, it can be anything like that. There's a recognition value to that. And when people see brands, and I know, you know, somebody mentioned it in the session yesterday, that as soon as you come to Riyadh, you see all these brands, and you see the Zumas and the various brands, and you suddenly feel a security to go and to that country and eat there, etc. So that brings that, and certainly to the hotels as well, and it attracts people to the hotels. So people are encouraged to go to brands, and that's why we're encouraged to take brands, and owners specifically are requesting brands much more often because they know that's going to drive business to the hotels. So definitely a massive shift. We're still doing our own internal concepts, but it's about getting that balance, a balance of brands with the internal concepts as well.
I guess sitting on the operator side of that, Rizwan, in terms of with concepts, can you give a little bit of a view as to how you first got into this and why you thought there was an opportunity in the market in this space particularly?
I just join what Lynne just said. I think there is a shift on the ownership. The owners are really pushing the fact to have this kind of brand and this attraction. In terms of F&B, I just remind you that the hotel is attracting a lot of tourists from outside the city. The F&B operator are mainly focused on the local business. So naturally, when we partnership with an hotel brand, the first things that we are bringing to the table is our local expertise above the brand itself. I did my first jump in this kind of management agreement and partnership with the Park Hyatt. We create one beach club called Twiggy. I think the jump is mainly done with the collaboration that we can have between all the ownership, all the hotel, and the team around the hotels. I think it's very important that the hotels acknowledge the fact that the salary, the payroll, every single aspect of what they have and what they used to have during years that need to change. And if we have this kind of collaboration, I think we can make magical things. And we prove that in few projects. We have one project together on the Palm in Dubai, and that make a lot of change.
And that's our #1 third party in the entire Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, which is Kima Beach with the RIKAS group. So I have to say, a very successful partnership.
Thanks. And the other things to talk about brand and attraction and maybe the globalization in general, I think we have a parallel today on the market. What pushed the malls to bring Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Hermes today in the malls? And of course, it's the product, the brand, the attraction, the recognition, and everything. And slowly, the hotel brands are trying to attract the same kind of level of business.
That's fascinating. I think I find it really interesting as well, the local angle and about having an understanding of the local market. And I guess that one challenge for you guys as growing as an organization is going to be going to new regions and new areas with what you're doing and how you convert and twist. I guess that's a good intercept for you on the end, because I guess with your accent and where you're from, I can guess that you're not particularly local. So how are you seeing that you're adding value to property, I guess, with a very different view of what Rizwan's saying of adding that local understanding?
Yeah, although I was born in the region, so I do consider this a lot more comforting. But I completely, I think Rizwan nailed it from a local lens. You know, we view, and my background's in hotels, so when I came in, I first looked at it through a hotelier's lens, a hotel owner's lens. And the hotel owner ultimately wants to drive NOI. And why do they partner with us restaurateurs? We target, and especially at our platform, José Andrés Group, I then look at the demographic. We target 3 distinct groups that will come to the property. First group are actually locals. And you've nailed it. You've become a destination for locals. And when you establish a restaurant, not as a hotel restaurant, but as a true destination, these become institutions for the community, and they drive traffic. We have a restaurant in New York called Zaytinya at Ritz Nomad, where we have 2-3 days a week regulars that fill our dining rooms. It's comforting, it's approachable. It's still luxury, but it's very approachable. The second demographic, tourists. And the reason hotel owners want brands, and we're very fortunate to be the recipient of this through our shows, the books, the humanitarian effort. It's a global brand that tourists do as they go city to city, and they do their discovery and research on where they want to dine. And in my family, before we travel any city, the first thing I do, breakfast, lunch, and dinners are booked. Then I feel guilty, and my wife says, well, what activities do we have? And I said, well, I've planned the eating. I guess we'll go on a hike now. I'm trying to layer something else in. But people lead their travel, tourists, with dining. And that second demographic with cities that are, especially cities that have a high population of tourists, brands attract a larger fair share of tourists. And then the third is, and I don't like this phrase, it's too early in the morning to know the right phrase, but an amenity for the hotel guest. So we're catering to those over our heads, whether we're leading the 3-meal, the signature restaurant. And I originally come from a casino background. Casinos are phenomenal at doing this. They capture and maximize the spend of their guests. They never want you to leave campus. And that's the mentality that a hotel owner has. If they can get one more dinner out of you, one more cocktail before dinner, you know, mocktail after dinner, that revenue capture will make the ultimate hotel owner benefit with a larger share of the NOI. And then there's the other benefit at the end of the day is highest margin business, obviously rooms, then banquet and sales. And if you can provide a slightly more elevated than your typical banquet, you get a larger fair share of that. We've seen it through our partnership with Hilton at the Conrad in LA, with Marriott at the Ritz in New York. We're now in South Beach, where we control all the food and beverage experience within the box, and then ultimately it benefits owners because we're partners in driving profitability.
And can you talk a little more to that? Because it's interesting that one of the things that we hear a lot in the world that we live in, talking to, I guess, hotel operators, is that often they perceive that at an outlet level, it might be acceptable to be able to use a third party, but it's difficult to make it work at a 360 level. But you say you're making that work.
Yeah, that's our value proposition and differentiator. It was my background in my prior company. Like I said, I grew up in the boardrooms of big casino operators that were going global at the time. And the power of capturing the guest's experience and controlling that experience is immense because, A, there's synergies in operations. And I think Rizwan nailed it when you look at, you know, ultimately you're putting a lot of pressure on the P&L of the hotel owners. How do you maximize that? And for us, we view it as, okay, if I have a 3-night stay at your hotel, ideally I can capture 2 of your dinners with 2 outlets. If you go somewhere regularly for breakfast, the odds of you wanting to go there for dinner drops dramatically. Hotels fall short with hotel restaurants that I mentioned when they lack identity. And when they just become, you know, check the box with something that feels a little more generic, people bypass that and they leave campus. The more we can control the experience, and that honestly leads to the design as well, where we've tried to be influential, to tell a story, make the design blend in, and control that customer journey. The end goal, we all have the same goal. You want to capture as much of the revenues, run a profitable operation, capture as much of the guest revenues as you can during their stay, and then make the soul of the property be as such that it helps push room rate where people choose your hotel to stay because they know that F&B experience is what they're seeking.
And that's incredibly well put. Thank you. Rizwan, a question for you. I think that you know, you've obviously made a big name for yourself within the kind of broader GCC region. That's only going to grow. And I know that you touched on it before about bringing the locals, but there's a lot to be said in terms of the size of your database and people following your business and your brand. And how important is that to the conversations you're having when it comes to business development with property owners?
First, the discussion today, it's with the hotels. Because the reality is you can always discuss with the property owners, but the day-to-day and the life is with the hotels and the GM and all the local staff. In terms of database, yes, of course, we have the growth, we have the database that is quite important and mainly for us in the UAE. But the reality is it's a real partnership. We need to attract the hotel guests. Today, I think I'm just making 5% of my revenue based on the people who are staying in the hotel. So it's quite low. And I think this kind of collaboration need to grow. The other thing is all data is something that we put and we value on the table. But for me, it's a kind of cherry on the cake. At the end, when we open Twiggy or Kima with Lynne, people are giving us the chance to have the experience of having a product from RIKAS. But the reality is the design, the programming, the food, everything is not at the level. They will never stay. And yes, we have this knowledge to bring that to this level, but if we don't have this collaboration with the hotels, it will be very difficult to attract the right talent, attract the right chef, and make sure that the communication, the entertainment is done properly. The reality today, a GM working for us has the salary of an hotel manager. And the hotelier need to understand, need to accept that. I think we are getting there. But the database is, I think it's a micro discussion based on what we have together.
Have you been to one of Rizwan's parties? I think everyone in Dubai is there.
I haven't been invited.
It will.
It's coming, I hear. So, Lynne, we obviously caught up the other night, and I think that I almost wish I'd have recorded you at that point, because I thought that you beautifully were able to articulate how these license structures and these deals work. And I guess that for the benefit of the audience, you're able to talk a little bit about what these deals typically look like, and I guess and the kind of structure that it can take. I know that most often you're using a license type situation, but there are other things as well, like leasing and so on. You're able to give an overview of that angle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look at partnership deals from all different angles, and again, it really depends what the owner's looking for at the end of the day, but also we have to advise on what would be the best deals for those places as well. The most popular one is the license deal, and that's where we bring in the recognised brand to assist us, and we actually operate that space with our team, working together with that third party. But what I always say is that, you know, when we're looking at these deals, we have to look at it from the lens of, you know, being in Switzerland, because from our point of view, and I know probably Tobias does this as well, is that you have to be Switzerland in the middle, because you've got your brand, you've got the hotel owners, you've got Marriott, you've got everybody's legal all structured around, and it's like, how do you get the best for everybody? Because you need to really capture the essence of that brand being led by the hotel team. So you've got to make sure that that's contractually obligated, that they can do as much as they want without losing certain things in terms of, with Marriott, they've got these legalities, and I'm sure Hilton and Accor have those too, but around the HR, around the finance, around the data protection, because we are such a big company. So it's how do we strike that right balance to allow the brand to be the brand? And you were talking about salaries and things like that, and I think that's so important, that we cannot go in with hotel salaries. We have to differentiate to get those independent staff. So, you know, it's working around these deals to get the best for everybody, to get the best for the hotel owner that gets the returns, to get the best of the brand essence, to get the protection of a big brand with Marriott, but also it's in our favour to get the brand essence and keep that in there. So that's the license deals where we actually operate them, and consultancy deals, we also do those as well, which is very similar but a bit lighter. And then you've got the management deals. Now this is where our legal department get all itchy. And that's when they start stamping on my head and going, no. So we have to get a little bit creative at that, because they say, we can't have a third party managing our staff. I say, well, they can do it really well. So we have this argument every single time. But anyway, so we try and then get creative with these license plus deals, and, you know, a bit more consultancy around those. So we try and get around it in certain ways. And then you've got the straight out leases, which then we obviously try as the hotel company to get the best mix of all. And it's in the owner's interest, I think, that we work together to get that right blend of the whole F&B strategy. And yeah, I know a lot of people say that hotels are not really very good at running restaurants. But I think
it's getting there.
It is actually. You know, if you look at Michelin star restaurants in Marriott, we've got over 50 Michelin stars worldwide in over 40 restaurants that we operate. We've got our own in Middle East and Africa, Europe, Middle East and Africa alone. That's the highest percentage And we've actually got 3 of our own Michelin star restaurants in Europe as well. We've got a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Wolfsburg. We've got 2 1 Michelin star restaurants in Athens and in Mallorca in our hotels. So yeah, we are getting it right in some instances, and quite a lot of instances. So, and most of our license deals we're operating ourselves. So I think that's the best one. It's the partnership deal to get the right brand, work with that brand, and with the hotel operating it. So, you know, you've got that local structure there with the right partnership. So I don't know if that captured what I said the other night, because I had a cocktail.
The Rizwan's sitting here very politely, like really trying to jump in around that management piece. So I'm going to let you. I had a slight raised eyebrow, but you could see he was trying to keep it polite and professional. So I'm going to let Rizwan jump in here now.
Go on, jump in there.
So we have a management agreement. So we manage our staff. This is our staff. No, the reality is you need to prove yourself. And let's go back to finance. The room rates are getting better with us. The GOP that they get are very strong compared to what they can maybe have alone. And at the same time, we get time to times better deals. But talking about hotels and the success that they can create, I have an example in mind. You go to 25 hours in Dubai. In the weekend, you have 1,500 people in the different venue of the F&B, between the monkey bar that they create, between nomads, between Tandoor Tinayat, between all the restaurants. So I think we are learning each other. They need us. Slowly, the collaboration is important. It's important for us also to be inside an environment that it's quite active, and to be alone, it's very difficult. So I'm quite positive. We are bringing some strong financial points on the table. But for us, it's important to make sure that we can choose a supplier, choose our staff, and manage it. I think I will be kind maybe to have license agreement when it's not in my playground, when we're talking to do something maybe in Brazil or in US. But look, when it's in the region, we have the strength to manage it.
Fantastic, thank you. One thing I think maybe people who aren't involved in this space wrongly think is that if you kind of get into bed, so to speak, with one hotel group, that's the structure. But it's interesting that both of you guys have shown that that's not the case. You'd be maybe to talk a little bit to your end on how that works and how you maximize for your business rather than that brand.
Yeah, listen, I love being Switzerland. And we're friends with everyone, you know, hung out with Tobias in LA, you know, what I thought was a couple weeks ago, it was about a year ago, you know, we hang out here with our partners at Kerzner. We just announced our first deal with Hyatt in Miami for their Andaz 2.0. Ultimately, the value proposition is the same. And, you know, the last point you were bringing up is very telling. Hotel operators and hotel owners at the end of the day have similar alignment. The restaurant operators do as well. What Rizwan's describing in this conversation at the end of the day comes back to how do you protect your brand? And we all want brand standards to protect our brand. And as operators, our goal at the end of the day is whether you go to Conrad LA, which is a license deal, Ritz New York, which is a management deal, and we don't do leases in hotels, but we have leased properties where the company was founded in DC. The experience for the guest, no guest will walk in and say, well, clearly that's a license deal for José Andrés Group. The goal is to keep that experience consistent, and then we learn from each hotel operator. The beauty of having this Switzerland role of being partners with everyone wants the same end goal. They go about it slightly differently. And that's where we're trying to get the best practices, which is a separate panel discussion, to go deeper as to, you know, how do we put our best foot forward, depending on the contract, depending on the operator. And then we're multi-cuisine and multi-price points. So right now, although we're participating primarily in the luxury category, the goal ultimately is, you know, how do we bring our content to activate properties at various levels for various operators?
You need to tell me which legal you dealt with in the United States so I can send my legal to your legal to talk and see how they did
Happy
it.
to. I'm with Rizwan, management work.
I don't agree. I don't disagree. I honestly don't disagree. But we need to convince legal.
We'll leave that to you. I guess it's interesting you make the point about luxury, because that was probably going to be my next question here, is that I think you can kind of see from lots of perspectives that luxury and lifestyle, this is an easier game to play. But where does this start when you're in economy, mid-scale? Like, is there still an opportunity for independent operators? What does that look like? Does anyone want to jump in on that? Everyone's looking at you then. So I guess the question around
luxury in terms of the brands and things in the hotels.
I mean, in terms of property, the property matching, I guess it's a much easier play in a luxury or lifestyle brand. But have you got examples in economy, mid-scale, where you're seeing independent operators and this space working effectively too?
Yeah, I mean, both are working. I have to say, if you look at the luxury properties, that's where most of my work lies, is people trying to attract the hotel, the brands to luxury. And in fact, we've gone in a real luxury. We've created recently a complete new division for luxury within Marriott. So that's an interesting space that we're working in at the moment. But when it comes to premium properties and select, there's definitely a lot more movement in the premium sector. I'm working on a couple at the moment. We've got one of our hotels from Jeddah, so we're working on a few there. So yeah, I think I've got a couple of properties that are looking over there as well in Jeddah. So yeah, there is a lot of more movement in that area, but I have to say it's still more prevalent in the luxury space at the moment for the brands.
Yeah, and James, if I got to answer that in a slightly different way as well, when you think of the luxury 5-star category, one of the ways we look at it is it's not all about luxury from a price point standpoint, it's luxury from an experience standpoint. So I think having the marriage of a more approachable, affordable luxury as your 3-meal, which becomes that kind of local destination, is really nice. If you have, you know, quote unquote, the luxury of having a signature restaurant that's more targeting Michelin star, a higher check average, and then bringing, you know, more of the high energy lounge experience for rooftop lounges, lobby lounges, speakeasies, et cetera. There's a spectrum to luxury that kind of defines that experience. The formula at the price point, that mid-price point level, for having operated there in a prior life, you're still looking for a luxury experience. Those guests are looking for the high energy, they're looking for the authenticity, et cetera, where the challenge is we can't charge the same price point. So as operators, we don't have the luxury of passing it on through price to have the incremental staffing and the costs associated with our operation.
It's interesting you pick up the point about in your previous life, because that was as you were speaking, I was thinking, well, actually, if I took Vegas to say MGM Grand, and you say, well, you've got a Rainforest Cafe there, a Starbucks, you know, Hacon, and I mean, the whole end from spectrum from end to end, right? And it's quite an interesting example.
And that's sometimes where we have this juxtaposition going on with the brand, and they say, well, you can't look at those particular restaurant brands for a Ritz-Carlton or a St. Regis. And I'm like, well, yeah, people have still got to have a burger, right? People, you know, it's just got to be a luxury burger. So, yeah, so we're often having that. But you also mentioned about salaries as well. So I can't put a luxury restaurant, I can't put a restaurant in a mid-scale property when the salary scales are not going to be as high as the luxury salary scale. So I can't afford one of Rizwan's GMs in the mid-scale. So we have to think about it in that respect as well.
I think we've got a couple of minutes, so I just want to give you guys each an opportunity to talk about, I guess if there's people in the audience that might want to connect with you, like where are you guys at in terms of your next steps and how should people connect? Go for it, Rizwan.
Yeah. We're open. We're open. If you have a management agreement, a nice hotel, a nice opportunities, we are looking for expand the group and the company. The focus is more in the Middle East and Asia, but the reality is you need to find the right opportunity. Our main target is to be a lifestyle brand that can be high-end, but also more affordable. But the lifestyle element for us is very important, and this is where we have our knowledge. We don't have any limit. You know, I think the limit is to have the right properties, the right owners, the right partnership. Based on that, I think you can bring me to the moon.
Amazing, thank you. For you, Lynne?
For me, yeah. I mean, if there's any brands that want to talk to me, absolutely. I'm very open to talk to brands. Yes, I know you're there, Christian. But yeah, just so I know we have one question in the audience. After we've finished.
Can we get a microphone over to
Scott?
Do you know what? How I'll do it. Let's go.
Yes, Scott Hentel. Question, well, Lynne, we've done some of these on the structure and the license. So I pay the restaurant license fee of what, 4.5%, 5%, plus probably a 1% marketing fee. The hotel manages the property. Let's say they're on a 2 and 8. And plus your central services charge. You add all those together, I'm up around 15% before I've even sold a taco. How do you make the numbers work? And I also ask, if the brand, hotel brand, has to outsource the restaurant facility to another brand, why should they get the same marketing or license management fee? Shouldn't it be reduced for the F&B sales? And one more question. You mentioned 25 hours. They've kind of flipped the ratio of rooms to F&B on its head. I think it's 70-30 F&B there. If you've got a tiered incentive fee, aren't you kind of cannibalizing yourself?
I will reply. So talking about 25 hours, you have the founders, Christophe, that is here. I think he will have a better answer than me. I'm not sure they're at 70-30, maybe 50-50, but I think it's all about numbers. And I have an example with Lynne. We have a project together. We deliver with the help of the hotels, because everything, all the back office and the help and the maintenance is still done by the hotel and support by the hotel. So we are talking about marketing and fees in general. Yes, there is a double fees. The reality is no one will let the fees go. The hotel want their fees. They are based on that. They have light asset model. And we are working for these kind of things. The ROI on the project that we have together for the owners the payback was done in 18 months. So I think as soon as you reach this kind of level of return, the fees is less a problem. No.
It all washes away, right?
It does. And what we're saying in terms of if you're bringing in a brand, you're going to be increasing your revenue anywhere between 15 to 200% we've seen happening in hotels. So where does that extra couple of percent matter when it comes to that? Because you are increasing anyway. We did that together. It's a partnership. You remember it's a partnership because we're working together.
I'm getting a big red flashing light here, so I'm going to let Sam do his finish. How do people get in touch with you, and what are you looking for here in the region?
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here. I've done 2 trips, really discovery in Saudi, and have been blown away by the culture and the opportunity here. We're looking to really establish a foothold. We can't be all things to all people, but we have a skeleton team already in Dubai looking to expand, and as we've been discussing, the goal is multi-concepts, luxury hotels where we can activate and create a true destination for the region.
Amazing. Thank you so much to my panel. A big round of applause.